Welcome. I know a lot of you enjoyed watching part one of the officer depositions in the Sargent versus Bish case. So this is part two. If you haven't seen part one, I'll put the link in the description. You have to watch that first. So this continues. This is part two and the final bit of deposition for this particular officer. In part three, we'll get into the other officers. The use of force that you did engage in at this point, in the first 30 seconds of the video, you didn't mention anything about that in your report.
No.
Melvin Sargent was handcuffed at this time.
Yes.
All right, let's continue to watch the video. We're at 32 seconds. I'm going to play it a little longer.
All right, then I will. Then I will. You don't care who you call. Do you know who do you know who my cousin there is? I don't care. No, you don't. Because he got killed. Come on. He got killed on 77.
Get your face. Boy, you need a baby. Get him. Look at me.
Bish, quit. Bish, no. Bish, please.
If you rewind it, that's where he kicked.
Can we play it again?
Yeah.
Play it from 27 seconds and we'll play it to about 53 seconds.
To get him under control. I know. When someone comes I can call you a bunch of state troopers if you want. I don't care. All right, then I will. Then I will.
Right there.
You don't care who you call. Do you know who
All right, so you're saying you saw a kick?
Yes.
All right, then I will. Then I will. You don't care who you call. Do you know who
You see his leg coming back down.
All right, you're saying you saw a kick somewhere in the 30-second range?
Yes.
So now you're saying that Melvin did try to kick you?
It appears so, yes.
Okay, but he didn't kick you?
I don't remember it right there.
Let me continue playing it, and then
Okay.
I'll ask you some questions.
Because he got killed. Come on. He got killed on 77.
Get your face. Boy, you need a baby. Get him. Look at me.
Bish, quit. Bish, no. Bish, please.
From the 30-second range to the 53-second range, would you agree with me that shows additional uses of force by you against Melvin Sargent?
From forcing him into the vehicle.
You tell me.
Yeah, from forcing him into the vehicle, and that was it. From holding his head down and me getting out and using vocal commands.
All right, did you use physical force on Melvin Sargent at this time?
Define physical force.
All right, let's play it again. For 30 seconds. This time we won't stop it.
Okay.
All right, so watching that video, it looks like your feet are outside the police cruiser and the upper half of your body is leaning inside the police cruiser with Melvin.
Yes.
And it looks to me like your body movements are jerking in such a way as is there's some sort of activity going on in the rear of that police cruiser.
Just me holding him back like this, and as he's trying to jerk and force his way up and down, just residual movement.
Ms. Chavez has taken this video,
Yes.
right? She's talking to you as this is going on.
Yes.
Several times she says, Bish, stop hitting him, or something to that effect.
Yes.
And you deny that you were hitting him?
Yes, I never hit him in the back of the car there, no.
When plaintiff alleges that you struck him or you punched him in the rear of that police cruiser, you deny that.
Yes.
It's your testimony that you were just holding him down.
Yes.
Other than holding him down, did you do anything else physical with Mr. Sargent in the rear seat of the police cruiser?
No, nothing.
You didn't strike him?
No.
You didn't punch him?
No.
And this is the time period where, as we can see, you were wearing those reinforced gloves.
Padded gloves. I wouldn't call them reinforced.
Padded gloves, okay. If we keep watching the video from 53 seconds on, let's go about 53 seconds to a minute.
Don't hit him like that.
Listen. When
So from 53 seconds to a minute, you approach the camera, right?
Yes.
And watching this video, we can see you walk up with your black gloves.
Yes.
And we can see that those black gloves have blood all over the knuckles
Yes.
of your right hand.
Yes, over the more of the ring, looks like the ring knuckle.
You're right-handed?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that that's your punching arm if you were to punch somebody?
If I punch, it goes with whichever one would be more efficient.
All right, so we can't see exactly what's happening inside the rear seat of the police cruiser, but we can see that when you emerge and you come over to the camera, you have blood all over your knuckles.
Correct.
But you don't know whether or not that's Melvin Sargent's blood.
I'm not 100% sure, no.
All right, so that's you talking to Jolena Chavez?
Yes.
So your explanation to her was, quote, quote, when I tell him to put his hands on his head and he goes to grab his back, I'm going to protect me, he, her, or him.
Yes.
What did you mean by he, her?
I pointed around to, there was a crowd. Pointed at everybody.
You didn't mention at that time any allegation of Melvin trying to kick you in the chest from the rear seat of the cruiser, right?
No.
Isn't it true that the use of force incident that we see in the first minute of this video, that's in response to the earlier encounter where you say that Melvin started to reach towards the small of his back where his gun was?
No. That use of force was done and over with.
But that's what you were talking about when you walked over to the camera.
I was explaining to her why he was under arrest.
Okay, you weren't explaining to her why you were engaging in a use of force against Melvin Sargent.
The first use of force, yes.
Okay, but she's filming you in the rear of the police cruiser,
Yeah.
and she's crying, Bish, no, stop hitting him.
Honestly, at that point, I didn't hear her. My focus was on him. And she can do whatever she wanted.
So you're saying you weren't upset at all about the fact that he had a gun on him earlier?
No.
So at what point, I mean, we saw on the video you close the door,
Yes.
and then you walk over and you talk to Jolena Chavez. Mm-hmm. At what point throughout this did you pepper spray Melvin Sargent?
After I go back towards the cruiser, he starts kicking the door, and that's whenever I go to the driver's side.
So the pepper spraying hadn't even occurred yet?
Correct.
After this conversation that you had with Jolena Chavez, how long after that was it that you pepper sprayed Melvin?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. It wasn't long. Maybe 10 seconds, if that.
And then after you pepper sprayed him, you shut the door and left him in the rear seat?
Yes.
Did you call an ambulance for him?
No.
Why not?
He wasn't injured. He didn't complain of any injuries, and no need for him.
Okay, well, you knew that you had pepper sprayed him,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. After we, per protocol at the time, if there's no major injuries on scene, we would return to the office and we decontaminate them here. Well, downstairs.
Okay, you could have done it at the scene, though.
No.
Why not?
He was under arrest, and if I didn't have any equipment or tools to decontaminate him,
All right, well,
that would require me to pull him out of the vehicle and put him and others back in harm's way. That would make no sense.
all right, well, let's talk about the transport.
Okay.
What happened?
While we was driving, we was on Glenwood Park Road. He started cussing again, making verbal threats, started kicking the door. He almost popped it open with one of the kicks, and that's whenever we stopped on Glenwood Park Road, right in front of some church. I don't remember the church name.
And what'd you do?
I went out, got out of my seat, went around the front of the vehicle, went to the passenger rear. Callaway came up to the driver's side front, and I secured his legs. Told Callaway as we was getting in, if he doesn't comply, we'll put a hobble restraint on him.
And what'd you do?
Callaway talked to him while we was holding him down, and he started to comply.
There's no video footage of this at this point?
No.
Was the idea to transport Melvin somewhere where there was no video footage of what was happening?
No.
Isn't it true that during the transport, Melvin was complaining, roll down the window, I can't breathe?
He kept complaining to roll the window down, but I never heard I can't breathe.
He's asking to roll the window down because he had pepper spray in his eyes?
Yes, and I was driving with it as well.
Did you not have some sort of barrier in between you and he?
You do, but anytime you pepper spray with anybody, you get it as well. It splashes back, and plus particles in the air. It's not pleasant for anybody around.
Did you roll your window down?
Yes.
But you didn't roll his down?
His was down enough to where he could receive the brief relief from the air hitting his face. It wasn't rolled down enough to where he could stick his whole body out.
At some point during the transport, was plaintiff told, stop acting like a little bitch?
I never heard that.
You didn't say that?
No.
You didn't hear Callaway say that?
No.
And you didn't see Deputy Callaway strike Melvin Sargent at all?
No.
Throughout this whole time period, Melvin was still handcuffed?
Yes.
Behind his back?
Yes.
At no point throughout this time period did Melvin attempt to flee?
No.
After you arrived at your destination when you're transporting him, at some point did you spray down Melvin with a hose?
I did. After we arrived here at the office, we went straight into the garage. I had him kneel down, and I ran a garden hose over the back of his head, allowing the water to drain from the top of his head towards the front of his eyes.
So you basically washed off his entire head.
No, the top half where the pepper spray would have made contact with his face and eyes.
Not only did you get the pepper spray off with the hose, but you also washed blood off his face.
I didn't notice any blood.
You didn't notice any blood?
No.
Okay. Melvin Sargent wasn't provided any medical treatment at all?
Other than being decontaminated from the pepper spray, no.
He didn't complain?
No,
He didn't ask for any medical treatment?
no. If he would have, I would have called.
In fact, he did ask for medical treatment, and you told him he can wait till he gets to Southern Regional Jail.
No.
Okay, and so if he had any injuries, any lacerations, any fractures, you would deny that.
I didn't see any, no.
Did you evaluate Melvin for any injuries?
I looked him over, but I didn't see anything. But it was more of a just glance over. And I asked him if he was okay. He said, "I'm good, motherfucker, I'm good, fuck off." His exact words.
When you pepper sprayed Melvin, do you believe that that was necessary?
Yes,
You think you could have used any lesser amount of force?
that was the lesser amount I had. I had no other tools.
Okay, well, he was already handcuffed in the back of the police cruiser, right?
Yes.
All right, so what were you trying to achieve?
Compliance for him to stop trying to kick the door and break the door open to do who knows what.
Okay, so that's why you pepper sprayed him,
Yes.
because he was kicking the door.
Attempting to kick the door open to do whatever to cause more harm or to run away. I don't know. I don't know what his goals was.
Would you agree with me that striking an arrestee in any way, for instance punching, would be a use of force?
Yes.
Okay. And isn't it true that under your department at the time, your department policies, that any use of force that you engage in against an arrestee must be documented?
Yes.
Must be documented by you.
Yes.
You would agree with me that your report in this case, your documentation, does not mention you striking Melvin Sargent in the rear of the police cruiser.
I didn't strike him in the rear cruiser.
You did testify earlier that you did engage in a use of force while Melvin Sargent was in the rear of the police cruiser.
Yes.
Okay, but you didn't document that either.
Documented that I forced him into the rear of the cruiser.
Okay, you didn't document any sort of physical violence.
There was no physical violence. It was an escalation of I forced him to sit.
And you have no idea what may have caused any injuries to Melvin Sargent.
No,
But it wasn't you.
I don't know.
Are you positive that the blood on your knuckles wasn't Melvin's?
Don't know.
You don't know. Acknowledging that you're saying that you didn't strike Mr. Sargent while he was in the rear of the police cruiser handcuffed, would you agree with me that it wasn't necessary for you to strike him?
There was no use for a strike in the back of the cruiser, so I didn't do it.
So you didn't strike Melvin Sargent in the rear of the police cruiser because it wasn't necessary to do so?
Correct. He was pinned against the seat and couldn't move, and there was no reason.
So you would agree with me that had a police officer in those circumstances struck him or punched him in the face, that would have been excessive?
Very much, yes.
You've had prior occasions of punching arrestees in the face before, right?
Yes.
So following this incident, you never did actually talk to the 911 caller, right? And Melvin Sargent wasn't charged with anything that occurred prior to your arrival?
No.
And you never interviewed Jolena Chavez?
No, I did not.
You never even asked Melvin Sargent about what happened prior to your arrival, did you?
No.
So when Melvin says or alleges that during his arrest processing that he was asking for medical treatment, you deny that?
Yes. I never heard him ask for anything other than the occasional threat.
About how long before you left for the transport did you pepper spray Melvin?
Right after he was sprayed, I believe it was pretty immediate.
Okay, so before the transport, you opened one of the doors, sprayed him in the eyes, and then shut the door.
Yes.
And you did that to gain compliance, you said,
Yes.
because he was kicking the inside of the cruiser.
Kicking the door and attempting to break it open.
I mean, he posed no safety threat to you, did he?
From kicking the door, yes.
Okay.
Just because somebody's handcuffed doesn't mean they're not dangerous. They can still pose a threat.
Okay, he couldn't get out that door, right?
If he would have kicked it open, he could have.
So that's why you pepper sprayed him, the danger of him potentially kicking out of the door.
Kicking the door and causing who knows what.
Did you pepper spray him to cause him pain?
To gain compliance. That's what it's meant for.
So you pepper sprayed him to cause him pain, not necessarily in your own self-defense.
For defense from the public from the area. Where I was at, he would have had more of an opportunity to go through the other door. I was in a safer location.
And at that time, how many police officers were present?
There was 3 certified.
3 police officers were present and 1 uncertified police officer.
Yes.
She was still armed, right?
Yes. She's still pretty fresh.
And Melvin Sargent, on the other hand, was handcuffed, right?
He was, yes.
You had already shot him in the back of the police cruiser.
Yes.
So that was part 2 and the final bit of deposition for this particular officer. Basically what happens after this point, after I stop questioning him, is his lawyer then gets to ask him questions and sort of try to clean up testimony. A lot of times that's basically pretty leading questions where the lawyer is sort of picking every problem area and sort of asking a leading question. In part 3, we'll get into some of the other officers, and they're asked some of the same questions, and you'll see whether or not they answer the same. Now remember, these are depositions. This is not trial. So there's a difference in questioning for deposition, which is more of a fact-finding sort of thing, and you don't necessarily follow the rules of evidence. And there's a big difference for cross-examination at trial.